Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of GoGodotJam. I'm Adrian, your host, and we have a lot of stuff prepared for today. But first, I want to make sure that you can hear me properly. So that is one thing. And then I want to thank all of you who have supported our fundraiser. By the way, it's still active until the end of the whole festival. So if you want to support us, the links are down below. And in today's video, we are kicking off an interview series that we had in the previous GoGodotJam. And I got some feedback from a lot of people that you wanted to see game developers and especially Godot game developers that have made games and released them. And I went online and I searched a lot and I found a couple of awesome game developers that I invited for us to interview together and see what they're up to, what are their games, how can you support them, and more secrets if they want to tell us or not. In today's episode, I have invited a very awesome game developer. His name is Liam. He is the creator of Magallanic Games. You probably know him from Twitter. He is mostly active there. I prepared a small introduction. I'm going to run it quickly. It's below 1 minute. It will tell you what you need to know about Liam in less than a minute. And then we'll get directly with him to tell more questions. By the way, we do have a survey of questions. It's also in the description link, I think. So if you want to ask him some other questions, you can put your questions there. Of course, we'll take them from the chat, but it will be priority based. Okay, so let's get going with the introduction. I found Liam late one evening scrolling through Twitter, looking at Godot Games. His games stood out of the crowd as they have reminded me of my childhood. As I found out later, he loves making games that invoke the feeling of the games from yesteryear. Liam started programming in 2013 and in 2018 he left software development to pursue his own adventure in game development. In 2020, he started experimenting with Godot. Since that time, Liam, by his company name Magallanic Games, released 8 games using Godot Engine. His latest release is Office Point Rescue Out the Office, and now has started a new project, a first-person RPG. Okay, we are live. Liam, welcome. It's awesome to have you here between Godot developers. So
hello.
Yeah,
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm very privileged to be asked.
Yeah, no, you're doing an awesome job, and we should definitely put more effort to promote Godot developers and Godot in general. So of course. You're invited. Well, one thing. So people, please do tell me if you can hear Liam as well as me, because yeah, it would be a bad interview if you can only hear me, right? So
You could just stop my part, to be fair. Make it up.
So yeah, it's really important that you can hear us both. So yeah, okay, cool. So Neko Towards, thank you. Yeah, nice.
Cool.
So okay, we'll just start shooting with the questions. Of course, it will be a discussion. I want it to be a discussion, so it will be a game development discussion with some questions. So it won't be like in the police where they shove you the light in the face and you have to please say this, please say that. Yeah, might be. I'll put him a little. Yeah, Dark Shroom. Yeah, first-person games. I hear you. Okay, so yeah, let's get going. Why did you choose game development, Liam? And what's your start?
That's quite a loaded question, isn't it? I mean, like anyone, I love games, but specifically, it's something which, like, throughout my life, even doing, I've done music and software development, software engineering, etc. But I've always played games. I've always wanted to make games. So even before I started programming, I was like, oh, I want to make games. I really love games, but I was like, I can't do it. But then I went into programming and stuff, and then after sort of a tumultuous time, should we say, doing software development, I was like, if I'm going to be doing this and putting all this work in, I might as well do the thing which I really love and am really passionate about and have like spent my entire life doing since I was like 2. So came into doing game dev and thought I'd just give it a stab and see what I could do.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, we had some time to discuss earlier. But I'm curious to also find out again, why did you pick Godot as the engine of choice? And yeah, people here probably are super interested in that, because yeah,
I kind of stumbled into Godot because I spent a long time, with like being programming and software engineering being like my fundamental like foundation for all of it. I was in C++ and then C sharp, and then I was like, this takes way too long. I want an engine, and I tried other engines, and I also wanted to move over to using Linux, not Windows, and the only one that really worked, sort of like frictionlessly for me, was Godot. And also I was really impressed with how quickly I got stuff done, and like actually how quickly I got I was able to get attuned with it. Because for me, I sort of have a programmer brain and then like like other brain, and it's like aim engines never gelled with my programmer brain. I was like, well, where are my like low standard like ints and arrays and my objects and all this stuff, when I was like, wait a minute, I don't have to think, I don't have to have this cognitive load. And gradually, because I didn't just like walk into Godot and that was it. I think the first version I looked at was 2, and I sort of had to go with it, went away from it, as I usually do. I'm very slow to pick things up, and I just kept on coming back to it, and each time it was better, and also I got more familiar with it, and it just gelled where other engines didn't, and also it just worked on Linux, and that really ticked me off when I was trying to use like Unity, and it kept crashing mid thing, and it was like I can't get into any flow because it's crashing. And then like Unreal, I wasn't going to waste my time learning to compile it, so I was just like, Godot, you win. But then like as I used it more and I got good results, I was like, why even look anywhere else? I'm fine, I'm happy with it, so it's fine.
Yeah. And you pointed out something very interesting. So you choose Linux to as your main operating system, and some people from this community do that and pick Godot just because it's the better engine that works in this operating system. I think the best. I mean, Unreal doesn't work, so
I think that's something which I don't actually like sort of say enough, probably, like when I'm like talking about like my stuff, at least on Twitter. But like like all my games are like, the primary platform and primary dev is Linux. Like everything is developed and tested on Linux first and foremost, and then like I have a Windows dual boot, and then I do my thorough testing for the Windows build there. But yeah, it's all of my games are 100% Linux made. Like everything I use, so probably touch on it a bit later of all the tools I use. But yeah, like that was something which I do.
Yeah. No, it's good. I'm also thinking of changing at some point. I do have some workflows that require Windows and Mac OS, but this privacy thing is just very concerning. And I think, I mean, with Windows 11, I think this is just getting more and more serious stuff.
Yeah, it's getting a bit over the top, and I mean, like the things, I think what you say there is very important, workflow. And like there are some things which you just need. Okay, like I technically lied, because the one thing which I can do on Linux, and it's not because it can't be done, it really can be done, is music. I still have an offline Windows 7 machine running like Cubase 6 or something, which I have like plugins from like over 10 years ago and stuff, which I use because it just works and I'm familiar with it. But it's something which I haven't been able to I tried and I haven't migrated it fully to like using Linux or even like 10. I just wasn't comfortable with Windows 10. I wasn't comfortable with. But yeah, so I can understand the workflow thing. It's very important when you're making stuff.
Yeah. I'm mostly like when editing videos, it's kind of hard to find a tool that you can edit videos like professional level, like either Premiere or DaVinci Resolve or Final Cut, because those are the main ones.
Yeah, I mean, for me, because like I'm not doing like loads of videos. I mean, I've stumbled across KDN Live. I think that's how it's pronounced, but it's like, it's amazing. Like it just load it up quickly. I can just do quick cut, quick fades of like audio or like crossfades of thing, and it's perfect for like a complete video editor noob as myself. And I was really shocked that I was able to find that, and it just worked. So I was like, yes, score. Then I don't have to do that. So it is just music for me at the moment that I need another operating system for.
Yeah. I think at some point we will have Linux for everything. but let's get back to the game development now.
Sorry.
No problem. I kind of like got us off the course. But can we discussed a little about your game development strategy and how you started making games? I think it's quite interesting because it's something that not a lot of people focus on. Yeah. So can you tell us more about your initial strategy and how it evolved?
Let's see. So the initial strategy, I think, was like most people who come to Gamedev, I'll just make a game and I'll just make it really, really good, and then that'll be enough. And then you sort of quickly find out many, many holes in that problem. But at the same time, I think when I was doing that, I wasn't really, it was my full focus. I was doing a job at the time. But my strategy has changed, and I think it's very important that anybody seeing this understands that this is in progress, and I cannot really say with any authority as to whether my way works, will work, or whatever. But all I can say is that I started out with the strategy of I thought I just need to get stuff out. I just need to finish a game. It doesn't matter what. I just need to get something out because there's so many things to learn. There's not just making the game. So there's making the game. There's then coming up with like promoting the game, which is a massive topic because it's so hard for many of us to do because we're just like we game developers. We just want to make a game, right? It's a game, play the game.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work like that. And then there's also the process of like when you upload it, putting up to different storefronts, the business side of everything, and then like doing updates and bug fixing and communicating that to any people which are part of your community and might be playing your games and stuff. So there's this whole process, and so it's like, okay, the way you learn is just by doing it quickly, and it doesn't matter whether it's good or bad. Like, just kind of like fail a lot. Like, I'm not gonna lie, with my life, like generally it's been just fail a lot, and eventually you sort of fail a bit upwards, kind of. So I'm still failing upwards, hopefully. And it's just like, so my strategy, as many games as possible, but now I've moved to an alternative strategy, which is kind of goes in hand with how I work, which is I can't keep on a project for too long because you get fatigued. Anyone will get fatigued on a project and you get burnt out. And it's a case of, at the moment, I'm just keeping that strategy, but I have a longer term project, which I've just started, which is the role-playing game. And then I will do like a smaller project, which is not really like a hobby project as such, but it's just one which is like a throwaway. So it might get released, it might not, but I'll spend like say a month or two or however long I need just to get back, and then I can get back to the bigger project. And so far that's been working pretty well. Like with the latest game I released, Out of the Office, I sort of started like a pre-rendered background like survival horror game, and like I've got all the stuff in place for that. It's really good, but nothing came of it, but it gave me a good break to coming back to my game. So it's like balancing my workflow and with like releasing games. I suppose that's it. It's just as many games as possible, throwing them out there and just trying to get them as good and polished as quickly as I can.
Okay, that seems like a good strategy, and a lot of people enter game development with the idea of having like a big project, a massive project. And they don't know exactly what they're getting into, and as they move forward and forward, they realize like, wait a second, this is huge. This is huge stuff that we are talking about. And having this strategy that you make small projects, and you also, one other thing, most of your projects, as Darkshroom mentioned, first-person games, as games should be, but it's not first-person games as games should be, but instead you didn't change, kind of like, okay, first you did a first-person shooter, and then you moved to an RPG, then you moved to an RTS, and so on and so forth. And you could reuse stuff that you built. You could build on top of what you already built.
So that's just so. I mean, for me, my first game was like a top-down like twin-stick shooter basically. And then like I reused code from that to make like a first-person RPG game, and then I moved to like doing the first-person shooters. But it's very important that it's like building up, because especially if you're a solo developer, like you're just you, and you need to not cut corners in like the cheap way, but you need to cut as many corners as possible. And in that respect, if you can reuse certain bits of code as much as possible you can, so it's like the AI code. I mean, all the different codes, so AI or graphics and movement or whatever. Most of them have DNA all the way from my very first game I released back in March, April, something, I don't know, 2020, that I did then. So there's either it's a reiteration of that code or like a refactoring of that code, or it's all there. And that's how I'm able to make games, because first person, third person, whatever, there are a lot of duplicate points in games. Like inventory systems, menu systems, weapon swapping, AI, enemy pathfinding, all this stuff can be transplanted into many different genres, and so that's where I've cut a lot of corners.
Yeah. It's I think putting it as cutting a lot of corners might sound for people that you are chipping out on stuff, but it's actually maybe we should use a different wording.
Well,
maybe
I mean,
like
put it like that.
optimizing the workflow or something like
It's
that.
optimization, yeah. It's like, because it's like budget, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so it's I budget time as money as I do time as I do money, and for me, I only have so much budget, which is why, like, when I do see feedback on games and they're like, oh, there's this missing, or there's that, or this happening, or like, I think this could have been different. It's kind of like most of the time, it's a budgeting reason. Like, it's not that I don't see that coarseness in the game, or that that's something which is a bit friction. It's literally just it's budget. It's like I updated or upgraded and learnt my workflow for 3D models way past what I did in my latest release of the game. But the thing is, in order to put in those new models, I would have had to have changed my 3D import workflow into Godot, and also the animation, because it had like body specific like reactions, and like to make those models with the new 3D workflow would have been like another month or two, and it was like, I just need to get the game out because it's good enough now, and then maybe in an update I can do that and add the models in for people who enjoy the game later on, and that's the sort of thing which I'll do.
Yeah. Some people go into this curse of perfectionism, and you have to just say, okay, now it's good enough. Now stop it. Now just publish it.
It's because I've fallen victim to the perfectionism thing way too many times.
Yeah, I think it's because of the fear of judgment, for you to be judged by other people through your work. But in the end, it's your work. It's not you as a person that gets judged, and it will get judged regardless of how good it is or how bad it is. So we cannot avoid that. We just do our game development and hope for the best. So
yeah, I mean that's the thing, is that for a lot of the time you're putting your heart out. You just don't, just be a bit delicate with it, please. Like, I know some people probably hate this, some people love it, but just be a bit gentle about like your feedback. But yeah, you're right. It's that fear of sort of like a rejection, I suppose, in a way, because you put so much time and effort into it. And tying back to the doing as many games as quickly as possible, that does help with that. Because if somebody really like rips and tears into a game, but you're still in the midst of another one and you're busy working on that, it's kind of like, it's like finding like another love. It's like, they're off with someone else, but you're like, I found someone new, so I'm okay. Yeah. I can find comfort. They'll give me a hug. I'm not by myself. I'm not just love stick on my ex sort of thing. It's like that kind of thing. So that strategy helps also with that side, the creative and personal side of it, of you sort of ricocheting off some of the any negative you might get, because you will. Like, it's just inevitable.
You will get inevitably. Okay, we have some chat questions, and we can quickly go through them. So Sander Van Hoof says, do you participate in game jams?
Sadly not. Like, it's not for the want of not wanting to. I really do. It's it kind of ties into sort of me as a person, I suppose. It's like, because like being on the spectrum, like certain things are hard. Some people may know. Either way, it's a case of that some of the stress is a bit too much. I think if I found the right game jam for me, it'd be able. So I need one which is like over a few weeks, maybe, or something. Like one of those, not like packed into like a weekend, like like Legendary or something. But it's like, I really want to. But that's why, like, when I initially started, I was doing like games every like 2 weeks, and I think I moved it to 3 weeks, because it's kind of like it was like my own personal game jam. Because then, like, if I didn't succeed, or what I perceived to be success for me with that game, it didn't matter. So it's just I just get very wound up about it. So I would love to do more, and I would love to get, and I will do, because I think it's something personally I need to do to get a bit of growth, and also as a developer, because you can get so many great ideas and meet and interact with so many people. But no, I don't.
No, GoGodotJam is kind of like a little more than 1 week, so it has 2 weekends. So it's not 3 weeks, but I think for a lot of people, having 2 weekends, especially like the ones that are working, I think it makes a difference, because they can focus in their weekends to work on their game. Okay, we have another one from Moody Bears. What's the most difficult part of making a game?
Oh, that's a broad one, isn't it? Making the game. I'd say, I mean, obviously it'll be personal to every person. I think it's the design, and then it's realizing the design and the view that you have for the game, like the the overall spectacle which you have. Often that doesn't come out, and so you make the game, and then you get to the end of it, and you're like, I didn't hit that, or I had to cut that, or I had to get rid of this, or literally like the thing which you thought was going to be really fun just wasn't. You prototyped it, and like you're like, oh, this is really good as it is, and you sort of jump the gun a bit. It's the design, like because you're trying to amalgamate so many different things, and also putting it down in some cohesive form that you can read and refer to is quite difficult. I found that for me, like when I was doing like sort of a survival horror adventure like point and click type game, it was quite difficult to find like a medium for me to put down my plan of how the game should flow, like as in not just the pointing and the clicking and the puzzles within a room, but also the flow of the whole game of like where do you go through the environment, and then how are you going to travel through the game, what story is going to happen, what enemies are going to appear, or items or things and interactions are going to happen, and putting these in some sort of very readable and easy to consume document is I find very difficult. And so that's why like a lot of my games have been very small, very simple, and not relied on too much of a very large design. Even though that's what I'm trying to do, and that's what I'm trying to sort of break through, because it's always like I've got to push myself with one thing at least. Once I've gotten comfortable with some stuff, I've got to at least go out there and do something which I know is going to be awful, but it's my first step into it.
Yeah. If I think the most crucial part of a game is making it fun, or finding that fun factor, because even if you put all the realism that's out there, if you put the best engine, if you put the best assets and everything, if the game is not fun to play, nobody will play it. that's like certain for certain.
That's just it, and I do see it a lot. I see like games like where like and I mean I do this as well, but like like you've got like some awesome models, awesome environment, awesome textures, or pixel artwork or something, and it's like, okay, so what game shall I make with it? And it's just like it's difficult. It's really difficult, even if you're somebody who can do programming and do everything. It's not a case of there's you've just done the art. It's like it's difficult to be like, oh, I've got this idea of this world and these characters, but then like, what game do I put it in? What game do I want to make? It can be a bit like overwhelming, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, and we have another question from Moody Bears. How much money would be average price for a small indie project?
What, as in like how much it costs
Yeah,
me?
probably
Or
like how much. I think the question refers to how much should you price your game if it's a small average, or like the average price for small indie project games.
I can't really say other than going from like, because it's such a feel thing, and it depends on who's following you and the value that they see in what you're making, and also you have to see what other people are doing, which is similar. So I mean, like, I think in some respects, my game, like some of my games, I probably underprice it a bit, but at the same time, I'm factoring into that price of trying to get a reach and trying to spread my games further, right? So I think the price can come into a couple of things. It'd be like, is your game worth it? What are your competitors doing? But also, are you trying to grow an audience and grow followers in a community? Because that would mean if you're wanting to grow, then you probably want to cut your price, right? And that's basically what I'm choosing to do. It's like, I think this is a great game. People don't know who I am, what my stuff is, like, and one of the frictionless ways that I can do that is probably offer it for free, or for a meager amount that it's not too much of a hassle if they don't like it, sort of thing. So, I mean, I'm sorry I can't be specific on that question, but I don't think anybody really can be too specific. And I don't have much data for that. I'm still in the thick of trying to work this out. But I think it's just look at your competition and just, I suppose, try and be as realistic. Look at yourself from the outside and look at your work as like, if I came across this, would I put down some money for this? And I mean, if you're pessimistic, you're probably going to be like, no.
Nah.
like nah.
No.
I get to the end of the project and I'm like, oh god, this is awful. Like, why? Why am I doing this? Have it for free. Where at the beginning of the project, I'm like, everyone's going to pay $15 for this. It's a masterpiece. It changes very quickly over the course of the project.
Yeah, but but I think some people are just not gonna pay you regardless. So it was like one day ago, Mrs. Released a tweet saying he posted on TikTok his game, and I don't know if you've seen it, but
I think I spotted that. Yeah.
some funny comments from TikTok, probably children under 10 or something like that, like saying one of them was saying, "Please make the game free."
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Just like it doesn't matter. It looks awesome. I really want to play it. Can I have it for free?
Exactly.
The one important thing which I never thought of, and I only thought about it when my friend said it, it's just like you've got to remember that when you have a free game, that you're probably going to end up having people which wouldn't be your customers anyway. So you might get complaints and you might get feedback, and then you're sort of like stressing about getting stuff fixed or iterating it, and it's just like, wait a minute, is this person ever really going to be a proper customer? Because you're spending this time on building and fixing stuff, and they've given you no money for it. Yes, you can have donations, but I mean, like, when you have a paid game, even if it's very cheap, you raise that bar of people who are like invested in like you and what you've said you're going to sell them. Like, they're at least invested on the outer looks, shall we say, at least. And so at least when you get feedback from that person who's paid, that it's probably worth your while to actually spend time to probably fix what they say. Depending on what it is, like, it's very general this, but it's like it's more legit than when you put out like a free game and you get overwhelmed with massive amounts of like comments of this, that, and the other, because it was like, oh, this is rubbish, this is absolute. I'm not going to swear, and you're just like, they're probably just trolling. They may not have even downloaded the game, but it's an open, it's free forum, so yeah, like, give it for free, like, fine, I do. Part of it.
Yeah, there's also this kind of trend right now with like free games, and a lot of big companies are jumping into this trend of like having free games and microtransactions. But I think microtransactions in this case work only if you have like a huge user base. If you have like a small user base, it doesn't work. So it doesn't go like that. But using DLCs and extra content paid, I think that might work for a small indie game developer that doesn't have the reach of bigger companies that they can get away with in-game purchases.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for me as an incredibly small developer, like, the whole demo or shareware model works pretty well, because I can put something out, and if it's free, you get a gauge of the interest and whether you've hit a market of a game, and then you can be like, I'll put some more time into that. I'll put more budget, and I'll do like a full version or something. So that's quite a good thing. So I mean, that's why I've made like so many versions of my FPS. Like, I think I made like 4 versions. I mean, like, yeah, like, one's a remake, but it's because it did well. Like, people seem to like it. They seem to like the idea, the concept, whatever it was. I don't know exactly what people liked about it, but I was like, okay, it's worth me putting more time into that, so that's what I'll do. I'll do another one, and then I can get feedback, and I can see if people like it, do they like what I'm further doing, and just keep on that until, obviously, of course, I want to make something else, so I have to try this other things. But yeah, I think the free game model works very well as an indie developer for that reason, that you can test and just see a reception to something, and see if it falls flat or not.
Yeah. We have another question. Do you like to include a lot of randomness and self-evolving things in your games, or do you prefer everything very well scripted and designed?
In terms of like when I make the game, like
probably how the game it is. So I can tell from my experience playing the game, I would say it's kind of scripted. So.
Oh right, yeah. So I do. I mean, I'm sure there's probably quite a lot of people, but I really love my roguelikes. So I do love my random elements, and I love a certain amount of. I like the only way I describe it when I talk to my friends is I like gamey games. I like games where it's kind of like they have their consequences or to this, that, and the other. And yes, I haven't made a game like that yet, but it's not because I haven't wanted to. It's because there's far more intricacy and work in it than you would maybe think from something which is scripted. I think, to answer the question in a very concise way as I can, is I would prefer to have something which is overarchingly like scripted and fixed, but with lots of with fun randomness in between, so that you can have different experiences over multiple playthroughs. That's what I would like. I'd like some reason for you to play my game more than once. That's what I want. And the only way I've managed that so far is by having unlockables. But I would prefer to have it with, like, you might get different enemies, different routes, different rooms, different levels popping up. So I do like it. I like procedural generation when it's done in a very controlled and limited way, as it has a human touch to it, you know, where it's just kind of like it's not just random, and you can end up with anything. So it's like, I like that mixture of both. I like an overarching thing which is solid, less. The only thing which I would say is that making something solid and scripted, you know where you're going, you know what you're making, you know where and you know where you've got to go. I've got to make this many levels, got to be this size, I've got to have these enemies, and this appears here, here, and here. Whereas when you have the random stuff, it's a bit more like, they could get this weapon at the start, they could get it at the end. Do I need to balance encounters or enemies or the player progression for this, that, or the other? So there's many more factors to think about. I find it a larger cognitive load. So hopefully that answers the question.
It's kind of, I'd say, the final decision in taking one or the other. I mean, having everything random or procedurally generated encounters and you cannot for sure give the player the experience you intended it to be. But with the scripted camera, with the scripted cinematic scenes or whatever, you can have like an experience that you deliver in the same way like a movie. You deliver it to every player, and you make sure that it gets delivered properly.
That's it. And it's also like the amount of playtesting you need to do. It's like if it's scripted, like the amount of playtesting you have to do compared to like a game with random generation is like minuscule, because you have to play over and over and over and over and over to sort of see as many different eventualities to your playthrough as possible, as what comes up and what your chance is like and all this kind of thing. And I know that for like my RPG game, what I did is I've written scripts literally to like simulate rolls of loot drops to see how is my probability and how's my algorithm for like drops, like how often am I actually getting. I've said this is like a 2% chance to get this drop, but is it really actually happening that much in say like 10,000 or 20,000 runs? And then I can see that. So there's all these things. So it's like a feel thing, and then you can also kind of, I suppose, like do some programming, you know, and I could get really stuck into like my programmer side and just be like do all the things and all the parameters and all the rest of it and just see what the data is.
It's very interesting. Okay, let's move over with the main topic, because I'm curious, what tools are you using beside, of course, Godot Engine? What other plugins or programs or applications are you using to make your games?
So I'm not using any add-ons. I think the only add-on I've used is one which I scripted myself really badly, and so it was just like, I wouldn't release this in a million years, and it was for like a really specific thing. But so I use sort of, I suppose, bog standard vanilla Godot, like, you know. I've been using the 3.3 version. 3.4 is out now, which I'm excited to have a look at. But as far as other tools go, I use Blender for my 3D stuff, and I use GIMP for all of my 2D stuff. For music, I'm using Cubase 6, and I have an old JV Roland sound module I use for the sounds, because I thought if I want that sort of 90s-esque sound, just get a module with all the sounds on there. I don't have to worry about something. So yeah, those are all my tools, I think, which I use. Okay. Yeah, that's definitely it. That's definitely
yeah. There are some great Godot add-ons that we just had a video of, for 13 of them, but there are much more than that. So
oh yeah, definitely. I mean, like one which has really caught my eye, which I'm dying to try out, is as a MIDI add-on. So it's a full open source MIDI add-on. So you can utilize MIDI, and so you could have music playing. So it can play MIDIs as basic as that, but you could also use it to like make like a music program within Godot. And because it's open source and the source is very nicely like laid out and commented and stuff, it's I just need to get the time to use it. But I'd love to have that, because it's like one of those things where it's like, hey, instead of including like I have an audio file in a MIDI, but obviously people don't have sound cards like these. But that's one add-on which I would really love to use. But there's many others as well, which I I need to have a go at, but I get very fixed in how I work, and it takes me a long time to get used to something else. And so it's not that there aren't amazing add-ons, because there's things which I do which I shouldn't be doing manually, which I should use using add-ons for. But unfortunately, I don't have any others which I can.
Yeah, there are some great ones that come to my mind, but yeah, take your time and be sure to keep an eye on what's going on with the scene, because it's amazing. Like, people are doing some great stuff.
They really are. I mean, sort of like the shaders and stuff which people do, and all that graphical stuff. Because I mean, like in my latest game, I did credit in the license. I remember he just did all these like really cool CRT shaders. But it was fantastic. I was able to just put it in, it had parameters. The code was nicely commented and explained, and it meant that I didn't have to like learn to do that. Is like, you know, just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should spend another week or two doing it when someone else has already done it and they've done it better than me anyway.
Yeah. And speaking of shaders and looks, how did you arrive to the looks of your games that we currently see? By the way, I did pin your latest game in the chat, so if anyone is curious what is Liam's latest game and how it looks, you can go directly. It's an itch.io link. So yeah, please tell us how did you arrive to this look and like this pixelated look, because it's just so familiar with the old school stuff.
It's partly nostalgia. It comes across from games which I like. I mean, like, it's very in, but yes, I love the PS1 low poly, low texture style. But it also goes into a lot of the games which I played when I was younger. Like, that is sort of like, it's kind of like how they looked, but it came across from partly trying to emulate those games from on PC and PlayStation, but also of what I was able to actually do myself as like, I mean, like, I love pixel art games, but my pixel art is atrocious, and so like I can't I can't make those. And so I was like, I love 3D, and I always have. I've done lots of 3D programming. I've played around with OpenGL and you know, shaders with that, and like, you know, low level a lot, like so much. You know, writing model importers, scenes and stuff. So I've just always loved 3D. So I was like, why don't I do 3D? Because for some reason my brain seems to work okay with doing models. I can get the better shape with models than I can when I like try to draw it. So like I started doing low poly models, and then I just started learning gradually about texturing. And then I also found that the forum Poly Count, it's basically a big forum where lots of artists from like many industries, like they really go about. Like, there's guys who really know their stuff and done it for decades. But I found lots of really good posts, one on the fundamentals, but also people who used to actually make games back in like the early 2000s, late 90s, and then just talking about how they made the textures and stuff. And I was like, oh, it really is as straightforward as it is. You just find a bog standard texture, load down or paint onto it and draw the stuff, you know, clean it up. You just that is as simple as that. Bake as much lighting into it as possible. So it's emulation of childhood games, like a lot of people, and then just sort of like due to like my ability and then like time needed to get something out is how I ended up with like the style that I have.
Yeah, and I'm checking the Twitter, so I've checked your latest posts, and I see some great animations, like the slime that has like the sword and kills you. I think that's a nice touch.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I quite like that, because I was like, you know, you always have like the slimes and the goops in RPGs, and it's just like, how can I make it just a little bit more interesting? Because I mean, like many of us, we have imaginations of things, or we played lots of stuff, and I was like, yeah, why didn't he just have his arm waggling out? And it's just like, you know, like if I had more time, like I'd have many arms, like doing all different things, because it'd just be funny. I just thought it was funny and like just a bit different, and so like I just thought, I know, goop, stick an arm. I've already got the weapon. It's an easy enough animation to do, and it's so you have to do some weird gloopy animation of an attack. And I thought, there we go, arm waggling, bang, done.
Yeah, it's funny, and you also have other animations, also really nice.
It's so hard. I find animation so hard. Like people, like animators, are absolute wizards. I mean, it goes for like any like specific thing, but it's just like I'm awful at it. I'm so bad, and so like when I get something which looks vaguely okay, I'm like, that's good enough, because for the style which I'm doing, it's kind of like how they would look, missing frames or like, a bit awkward here or there. So I can get away with it, I feel, with like the style as well, because it fits with that aesthetic of back in that time when they weren't necessarily like skeletal animations, or it was very limited, or they were limited to the number of bones they could have on models. So it's kind of like, yeah, it works. It's fine. It doesn't need a reload. Like the shotgun doesn't actually need to like cock. Like just move the hand. It'll be right. It'll be fine.
Yeah. No, the animations look great. I'm curious, how are you marketing the games that you have worked on? Like, what are your channels, or how do you get it out to the people?
So far it's solely been Twitter, and I suppose Itch has kind of moved into sort of being part of that sphere. So it's just another like aspect of Gamedev which I'm learning and just trying to get on. So it's through Twitter, through sharing like my progress and my work, and just putting it out there and just seeing what takes hold, and then people have started to follow. And then on Itch I find that I do get some sort of organic following and people looking at my work through, I suppose, like either referral or recommendations of the games which I have released. So that's my only marketing at the moment. I want to do more. Obviously it'd be great to have like a mailing list, of people which are really into it, and so like I have them so I can let them know about my stuff. But I mean, yeah, so I was talking to a friend who's like much more like in the know with like marketing, because he's part of his job, he does that, and it was just like funny. It's just like you just got to keep like telling people about it, like showing them, right? Show them. I was like, okay. And that's when I did my latest sale. I was like, okay, I'll put it out there. And I was like, wow, it works. If you actually like just put it out there a bit more, then you surprisingly,
surprise, surprise.
Surprise, it starts to sell, because people may not, because I never thought of this. I was just like, people may not see it. It's not that they don't like it or they don't want to interact with it. They may not have even like seen it because of the algorithms which go these further. It's like, so you might need to do it several times, because there might be that person who obsessively checks who's seen it about 5 times and is like sick of you tweeting. But then there's like everyone else who's just like, oh, so yeah, just Twitter. But I want to go onto other stuff. Might go on TikTok.
Yeah, you'll get comments like, "Can you give this game for free?" Or another gold mine. I would say, if the game costs more than $10, I'm pirating.
Yeah, it's just like, go ahead, pirate my game. I would love it if thousands of people that did actually pirate my game. It would be amazing, because it would be the most people which had ever played my game. So please, go ahead. I need the publicity, please.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. And one thing that people don't realize, and I want to tell you here now, is exactly this. So no matter what you are selling, if you show it to enough number of people, eventually someone will buy. So don't be afraid to show your game, put it out there, but don't just put it out there because nobody will know. I mean, it's already too saturated. The algorithms are doing their best, but it's not enough. We need to push it ourselves. Of course, don't spam. That's the wrong way. But yeah, use any legal way, not spamming, but like Twitter, like Follow Fridays or Screenshot Saturday or whatever.
Screenshot Saturday, yeah, it's a good one. Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing as well is that I find this especially hard, and I'm really sure I'm not learning this, but it's just really giving a part of yourself when you talk about it, right? Just being either sometimes being like, you have to be yourself fundamentally, but I mean, like, if you're trying to push something, try and at least add the fun element to it, because I did with like some of my promotion tweets, I really did try to just like take a bit of a joke about like what I was selling and all the rest of it. I was talking about like all the elements of my games, and that seemed to work quite well with it. And it's just injecting a bit of your personality, so it's not just the same stuff again, because it's, I mean, I'm sure as a YouTuber, to get those clicks, you've got to sometimes do clickbaity things or whatever. And if you put a title as exactly what something is and what it's going to be, nothing's going to happen.
No.
Right? And so it's just kind of like, just try and spin it up a bit, try and just get a little bit more relaxed. And as somebody who does need to probably relax a bit more when they're publicly facing, then I think that's another thing which I need to do, is just play around, joke with it, just see what happens with stuff. And also partly being like realizing that no matter what you do, it doesn't matter as well. Like sometimes most of the time success of things isn't really down to you, it's luck. And I suppose making more games, right? That's me just increasing my luck. I'm just trying to throw the dice, roll the dice more and more and more and more. And the more times I do that, the higher my chances that someone will do it. And also converting, as you say, like I'm like, if I can get 1% of whoever follow me to buy my game, that's a success. So if I just grow my base 1% every time that they buy it, I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah, but you can also take the price and they still buy it. So that's really cool. But yeah, the analogy with the dice, I've also heard it before with another. So you know these vending machines for candy, like they're like round, like spherical shape with like candy inside.
Oh, we have like the little knob which you turn at the front and it drops down.
Yeah. You turn a knob and I don't remember exactly the book that had this kind of analogy, but the author said this. So it's like if you put yourself in more situations, there's a lot of like regular candies there, but there are some golden ones. But if you put yourself in some specific situations, like you put yourself out there on Twitter, on I don't know what, TikTok or whatever, then you increase the number of golden candies in your vending machine, and you still have to roll it. So it's still the process. You still have to roll that, but then like the chances of getting that golden candy increase, and you it's definitely luck. So which candy comes is luck, but putting more candies there, it's your choice. So it's up to you to do the marketing or contact a publisher. But with the technology today, I think we can do marketing ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like, if I had the money and the budget to like have like a social media manager, well, I would. I really would, because like I find it the hardest aspect. I think. I mean, like the business stuff is actually probably the business stuff is actually the hardest, which is why I definitely do pay for that, because I would end up with a lot of fines if I didn't. But yeah, like
of course.
marketing and like business is I would. I mean, I think that's like a general rule. It's like, if you know that someone can do something better than you and you really, really, really keep hitting your head against it and you can't do it properly, you should start paying for it. Obviously, budget is.
if you have the means to do it. If you don't, definitely. Then you have to learn something.
Have to get your hands dirty a little bit and just try and learn and just keep on learning, because like everyone has to keep learning different aspects of this. And if you're working in the games industry and stuff, you're going to have to do many different aspects, even if you do just have a job as an artist and an animator, a programmer, a designer, whatever. You at some point you're gonna have to do another thing, and so you might as well just learn it.
Yeah. And speaking of like the business aspects and stuff, are you full-time in game development, or it's like a part-time or hobby, or
what's it's full-time. I've been full-time. Where does the time go? Because like the last year, like what was it? It's like 2 years or so, something like that. I've been full time, but it's because I have a unique situation which allows me to do this without. Because I did start off doing it, and I would do like I set hours like after work. But yeah, I'm full time, and so my budget is my time, so like, I'm able to have a larger income.
Okay. Yeah, Darkshroom asks, what sort of business stuff you have to pay for to not get in trouble, except for the mob part, like you have to pay them anyways.
Oh yeah, they're not doing a great job, are they? Really? Because I mean, well, it's so here in the UK, like it's like I've got to do like company filings and tax filings, and you have to do certain like announcements. But it's the big thing is the like the accountancy files, so like the budget, like the end of year reports and all the rest of it. And there's many ways which that has to be done, and you can do it yourself, but you're gonna screw up really unless you're an accountant, or you can spend a good amount of time being able to do it and make sure it's all done properly. So yeah, it's like company filings and tax filing, but then also I mean like registration of like business addresses and stuff, like I have to pay for that because I don't really want to register that to my own address, so that's another cost. And then obviously all the other things, the website. But yeah, those things which I have to, which I'll get in trouble with, the company filings and the tax stuff. Like, because you do that wrong, we're talking like £1,000 fine or something.
Yeah, and I think probably the most one that will get you in trouble is not even not paying your taxes, but not declaring your taxes properly. So
Yeah,
it's related.
that's literally it. So it's not a case of like not paying it. It's literally like you filled out this form wrong. You haven't let
Yeah.
us know
So
this
yeah,
information.
if you
You're
missed
fine.
like the filing or missed the deadlines or missed like other stuff, like you don't want to make it wrong with the people collecting taxes. With other people you can mess it up, but with those people you don't want to get in trouble. Whatever
No,
you do,
no.
just pay your stuff.
If they owe you money, you got to chase them up. If you owe them money, they will let you know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So yeah, that's how it's gonna be. So if anyone is looking for starting a game dev company, you should start. But yeah, be aware that you should pay all your taxes and you should declare all your taxes and try to be as legal as possible. And yeah, do not try to cheat any of these systems.
yeah, even if
Because
you're not, and even if you're not making any profit, you will be owing, be having to pay for.
yeah,
It. So
yeah.
yeah, you do have to think seriously as to whether you do want to actually, incorporate or whatever it is. Make your limited company or whatever.
Okay. So tell me a little about the what is your what do you expect to see in the future? What are your plans for the games that you are creating?
So at the moment, so I suppose the thing. So I've been showing the stuff for the RPG, which I've been taking like a break from with other developers. So I've been making another game in the past like 2 weeks. So that game is essentially I have not announced this anywhere because I'm Twitter to talk about it and short man. Essentially, I'm creating an alpha demo of like the first area of this RPG game, and I'm basically polishing it up, and I'm going to be putting that out in the hope of seeing if it's liked, if people like, because there were some people who really liked the first game I made of it, but gauging that and then seeing if I can put that into a bigger, longer term project, which I haven't done before, and maybe doing some kind of low amount crowdfunding. So that's like a big plan, which because I'm like I need to move because doing lots of small projects is great, but at the same time I'm still limited not just by my time, but also like because it's a small project, there's only so much I can develop ideas. So there's that. The other thing is that the game which I'm making at the moment is actually a sequel to the very first game I made in Godot and released. And so I'm really excited for this because it's just a bit different, and I'm just going to have a bit of fun, and it's going to have much more of those random elements. So I'm doing that, and I should hopefully be sort of releasing that fairly soon. I'm not showing development of that because
Yeah.
it's kind of like as much as it will be a released thing and sort of part of my work, I want to just have it with no pressure and no sort of like ugh. And also I'm very wary of the impression which I might give to people which are following me of just like, oh, you're working on this and now you're working on this. They're following me for something else and they're like, well this, we don't know what it is, and I can't be bothered. I'm just like, I'm going to go for a released, like a full, like it's going to be known when it's finished sort of thing, and I'm going to put it out there. So I'm looking forward to that, and because it's a game which I feel that I can expand with extra levels, characters, and elements and stuff, so I can build it. And and that's another thing. So if we're talking about business stuff, right? This is an experiment for me to sort of release it as free, or even so free, and then try it where it's like early adopters get it for free or a lower price, and as the game gets more content and more characters and more levels, if it's enjoyed, right, then you have to pay more. But obviously those people which bought it like when it was first released or downloaded it will still get all of that for free. And so it's just sort of like trying to see if that kind of thing works as well. You've got people who might enjoy it and sharing it around and like getting new characters. So there's that. So I'm going to be trying to TikTok between a larger project and then small projects. I want a small project done, then do another one and another one. Keep experimenting because, like, yes, I've made first-person shooters, but there's so many different genres and types of game which I really want to make, and I have so many ideas which I still haven't managed to make yet. And a lot of the games which I have released so far, if they're not a first-person shooter, they are an undeveloped idea which I have a far greater design and plan for, which I haven't been able to materialize yet because I'm just one person.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, it's a big plan, and yeah, it's a small problem. It's also one problem with the YouTube channels as well. Like you gather people by showing them a specific type of content, and then suddenly you change, and you see a lot of unsubscribers or a lot of people unfollow you, and you don't understand why. Well, this is the reason. So people came for a specific thing, and you're not offering them that thing anymore. So it's clear why they are doing that. Some
It's,
will stick around with you because they like you as a person. But don't expect it to be the majority.
yeah, it's because it's like I can't communicate. Like it's very difficult to communicate over these channels as to what you're doing, because it's like if you could communicate, okay, so I'm doing this project, but I'm just taking a break from it, and it's still in development. I'm still going to be doing this. So if you keep following me, like that stuff will resume very, very shortly, and I'm just doing this other thing. But the thing is, the amount of people which will actually see that or care is very limited. So it's a communication problem in part, because it's like you will get that content still, and I will still be sharing that. I just need a break. But then it's just like, how much can I put in, like what 140 or whatever characters it is, or as I said, if people even care. So for the most part, I try to ignore it, because like I'd go insane. But it's just like, yeah, it's either way, I just want to share my work and have people enjoy it, and make something which people enjoy, and try and have a broad appeal, you know, in respects, because like some of the games which I love most, and I mean like the thing which comes to mind is Stardew Valley. I feel that it has an incredibly broad like appeal. Like I mean, I love my games. I like Dark Souls. I love first person shooters, Resident Evil, you know, what else? You know, Last of Us. Like so many endless like different types of games, RTSs. But like I still love like sitting down and making my farm, like playing around with the relationships, you know, going fishing, and you know, just to chill out. So it's just like you can. I mean, certain games, yeah, do lend themselves to being more wide appeal than others, but it's just kind of like, yeah, I think just try and get as broader appeal as possible, and like you might get lucky.
Yeah, we have some new questions. So someone is asking, Cyprian, is Lime interested in a tool to convert UA? So probably that means Unreal Engine assets to Godot.
Am I interested?
Yeah.
I would be interested, but I would have thought there's licensing issues about it. Because
Oh,
aren't they like
yeah.
some of them like, yeah, you can only use them on Unreal? I mean, like it would be cool, because like I'm not gonna lie, I use the Unreal Marketplace for reference, like because there's some really good references, because there's some really good sets, and so you just like the images and the layouts, and they're really good for reference.
Yeah, I think they also offer for free different packs like every month, or they did offer. I don't know if they offer, but if you can like export those out of Unreal, you might be able to use parts of them. I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's where licensing just gets like
Yeah.
if it's like muddy, I just won't deal with it. But it's like, I mean, like in an ideal perfect world, that would be incredible, because yeah, like you can just, there's so many awesome assets, but it's just like the legality and all of it, because that's the other thing, as somebody who has a company and is you know, a legitimate legal entity, like I really have to be above. I have to make sure that the licensing is tight and stuff, and that it will be fine if I'm using that.
Okay, so we get the answer back. So he says like, if they're Epic's assets, yeah, you have like problems, but for third parties, yeah, it should be good. So
Oh, cool.
yeah, that's.
I think I'd probably consider that, because I mean, like especially with like the high poly assets, like there's so much you can do with them, because
yeah.
especially if you're doing low poly stuff, you can use baking, you can use parts of the textures, you can just like mash them together, you know, kit bash stuff, and so you can get a lot of work from them, like, and so yeah, and there's just some really good work on there, and I mean, I've had good luck with like finding stuff on Sketchfab and using them for reference and stuff, but like having something which is more game orientated would be really good. Yeah.
And also, just do all is not a question, but he checked your website, or they checked your website, and you don't have any email. Says like Magallanic Games doesn't have email capture attempt at all. So
No, it's because again, it's like a leak. So as a company here in the UK, we have to conform to like information protection action rules. And so it's like, if I hold a database of emails, that's personal information, and I have to prove, and I have to let them know that I am holding the data in the correct way, and I'm treating it as it should be treated. Otherwise, I get fined. And it's just something which at the moment is just too much for me to do. Otherwise, that's what I would do. Because as it sounds, it's like, you know, like so stuff on itch and or if it, I don't hold that on my systems, on my computers. I don't have that data. I do not have that personal information. Therefore, it is not my responsibility, and I can't share it or anything. As soon as I have like an email list that is personal data, I have that, and it's my responsibility to keep it.
But there are
safe.
tools. There are tools like websites that help you with like email lists that actually hold the emails on themselves. So you don't actually hold
Yeah,
them.
you have to pay for those, don't you? Though that's the thing. They have subscriptions, don't they?
So yeah, they have subscriptions. Actually, so speaking of email lists on GoGodotJam, there are 2 email lists, by the way. The first one is for you improve your workflow, and that one has a lead magnet, and the other is for the generic newsletter. And for those you use ConvertKit, and it does have a subscription, but the free version, you can use the free version. I think it's up to 1,000 emails.
Oh, okay.
You cannot use automations with it. You can use just broadcasting with it. So I think for starters, you can use that, no problem. And they also support GDPR, which is great for EU. I know UK is not in EU anymore, but
I still have to conform to it.
Yeah.
Because if you're an EU resident, like it doesn't make any difference. So yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, that'd be good, because I think I did have a look at stuff, and it was paid, but it's good to know, especially if you've used it. So that's why I don't have that. Most of the answers to things as to why I don't have this, that, or the other, it's probably because I haven't looked into it, because I'm already overwhelmed with everything that I'm currently doing, or I don't have the money for it. It's one of those two things. But it's always great for people to. I love it when people do share, and they can point me in a direction or something, because yeah, there's just so much cognitive load with all of these things you have to do. So I will definitely be taking note of that, and even 1,000 emails, that would be fantastic. I'll probably check that out.
Yeah, and let's move on to my last question before we move to the survey questions. So, what advice can you give to game developers that are starting out? They want to make and sell games. What advice can you give to people? Maybe even looking at us right now.
Well, so that's a difficult, broad question to say. I'm thinking of all the different aspects. I'd say if you just started game dev and you want to sell and make it your profession, just make something and finish it. And I think that's probably what everybody says, but it's really true. Just make a game and make what you want to. Obviously, try and limit your scope with things. But at the same time, don't be afraid of being ambitious and just trying to make that game which you want, because only through doing something do you realize the pitfalls and the limitations of it, right? So there's so many, this thing, don't make an MMO, an MMORPG first, or all this kind of thing, right? Fine. But you're not going to learn why that is unless you do it. And it could be that if you just start it, you're like, okay, make your RPG, but try and finish one in 2 weeks. And at the end of that 2 weeks, regardless of the result, just it's finished, and see what you have learned from that, and see if you could have had something releasable. And then you'll learn all of the things which it entails to make an RPG, because you can read endlessly and you can watch endless videos, but you will not learn unless you do it yourself. And someone can tell you, they can verbatim tell you what to do, but it won't be the same as if you just go and struggle through it yourself. So I'd say as a new developer, just do what you want to do. You have to be passionate about it, and you have to do it. And so if you go on a forum and say, if I make this first, and they're like, no, you shouldn't make that. Well, the only reason they're saying that is either because they've listened to other people and not tried it for themselves, or they have done it themselves. Either way, you need to learn for yourself, is it actually viable to do? So get stuck in, just go feet first, like a blind moron, and just do whatever the hell you want. And that's the other thing. Just do what you want. Don't listen to the internet, to what other people say. Just make the game and put it out. And it doesn't matter what people say about it, because a lot of the people which will tell you your game's rubbish, or you can't do this, whatever, they haven't done it themselves, or they've been disparaged themselves. So just make what you want to make, no matter what it is. Just get it.
Yeah, it's a good advice. If you know the Shia LaBeouf clip, like that, just do it.
Yeah, there you go. Just think of that. Just do it.
Yeah, just put that video on repeat. Just do it.
Yeah, because the thing is, if you start trying to do something which you're not inherently interested in, or the reason why you wanted to do game dev, how are you going to succeed? Like if you have this idea for a game and then you don't try it, like how are you going to know if you like it? Because if you're making a game or something which you don't particularly like enjoy or excited about, how are you going to make other people excited about it? Because you need to get other people excited. No one's going to be as excited about your game as you are. And if you're not excited, how is anyone else going to be excited? And I can firsthand like tell you that is the case, because there have been games where I've thought, this is a failure, this is crap, I've released it, and like lo and behold it has, because I haven't just been shouting about it and being like, here's my game, check it out, come on, have a look. And I can only be like that if I'm really into. So yeah, if you're a new game developer, don't listen. It doesn't matter how many years experience someone has. And this goes for anything, I think. Just, you have to find it out yourself. Like, don't be told what you can and can't do. Just do it. Like, just get on with it and stop thinking. Because the more time you spend prevaricating, you're wasting energy and time just like listening to what you shouldn't do. Just fun.
Yeah, it's super great advice. Okay, let's move on to the questions from the survey. So the first one, how do you stay organized as far as making a plan for features and tracking progress?
Oh, we're getting into the stuff which I don't like to show. It's like, the stuff which would make people horrified. Oh, well, at least we're not getting into like codes and scripts. I literally have a notebook and I write it down. And so what will happen is that I've started being more formal in the larger process. So if I want to, say like I'm excited, I'm in the middle of making a game and I want to make another game, I will literally like write down everything as a design point for the game. I will design out every single thing. I'll go as low as like saying what stat changes are or what objects or how I'm going to code it, the architecture or the game flow, like you go from like the home screen to the village to the character to the fight, blah, blah, blah. I'll go in really detailed. But when I'm in the middle of a project, I'll have my notebook and it'll be for the day. And so if I have nothing, like I will write down everything I need to do and then I'll tick it off as I go. And then when it gets to the end of the day that I've finished, I will then see what I've done, what I haven't done. And if there's anything new, I'll update that list. And if I need a new list, then I turn over and do it. If I don't, I'll leave it as it is. The next day I'll turn up and it's like, I've only got 3 things to do. I'll do those things. And that's how I track like a lot of like my progress. And also like with Git, because everything is in version control. And so I just write every single commit has like what it is. Everything. So I mean, like if I just export it out to a text file or something, then I can just see, because sometimes I do that, I'm like, when did I change that, or why did I change that? Or sometimes I'll even put in revert back to this commit if it's all gone wrong, and I'll do things like that. So it's a mix. It's heavily weighted in like writing down, because I just find it much more it just sticks better. It helps keep motivation, just having that hard ticking and crossing off of stuff and writing it down, and then just using version control with it. It's very loose, but then I can, as a person by myself, I would be far more formal. I would use like Trello and type stuff if I was with a team, because it needs some way for someone to track what I'm doing, and I need to know what they're doing. But as it's myself, a notebook is absolutely fine.
Yeah, so you don't have any stories with like, oh, I lost all my project stuff, my HDD just imploded, and
No,
you
I will
use
say, I'm very bad with art, because I'm just like, I'm like, oh my god, it's huge. Like, so I try to keep it separate from like my code. And so like I sort of, when I remember, back that up. So that's an inevitability that will happen at some point. That I will. So like I need to get that going.
Yeah, you should back it up. Otherwise, yeah, we just see like a Twitter post like, "Hey guys, I lost everything. Sorry."
Yeah, I mean,
I messed it up.
I typically do that like 1 to 2 weeks, so like I'm never too far. And also a lot of stuff is duplicate, if that makes sense, because like I will reuse assets and stuff. So like I have versions of things. The only thing is that I've found that since I've been doing like more high poly and like baking it down to lower poly, is the starting to get into the gigabytes of stuff. So like I am actually gonna have to have a formal solution for like backing that stuff up.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would use yet. Yeah. I'm just using Google Drive.
And speaking of the art, what is your 3D asset workflow like? Because yeah, we know Godot has some issues with 3D, so let us hear it.
It started off with a lot of like head banging against the desk, but I have scripts which automate import and export both. So from Blender, what I'll typically do is I will separate between like levels, modular pieces, or characters, and I will have different types of exports, because I don't want to have to keep manually clicking and exporting to Godot. So for that, I just have Python scripts which I use, and they will do certain things like export certain files to set directories, or they will append like suffixes, what have you, so that I can read those when I'm in Godot for import purposes. So I'll export from Blender using Python. Then in Godot I have like this is where like the ugly stuff comes out is that I just have like a scene which I do like the the run the scene sort of thing, and then it will run an exit. And so what it will do is it will go through like my assets that I need to extract. So what I do is I export for GLB, and so what I do is I load the GLBs and then I put them into like just a typical like Godot scene, and I'll save it as a scene, and then I'll also extract the mesh itself as like a resource file and save that. So everything go in. So go from Blender, go into Godot, extract it out, and then I can drag it and move it about in Godot as I please. So that just requires, and also those scripts will attach collision if it's required. So if I'm using like modular pieces in Godot and building levels, those name suffixes will refer to the type of collision they need to load at that point that they're imported. Character stuff gets a little bit more complicated, and it definitely did with having like the multiple like limbs like that get destroyed and stuff. But that has a similar process where like I name all like the model versions or whatever, and they're exported with their animations. Because I've also found that it's a good way of having like the animations stay as they should. So when I'm in Blender, character animations are typically made, then they're stashed, hard stash, and then you can check in the view. There's like you can view what's in the Blender file, and you can check that the animation is there, because there's so many times I export from Blender, go into Godot, and the animation doesn't exist, and I didn't realize for a long time. Stash, because sometimes they would just appear magically, sometimes they wouldn't. But if you stash, it will, and then you can double check it before you export. It's in the actions. It should be in the actions. So do that, export over into Godot, and then they should be just there. And then I just make sure that I have all the bits together. Blah blah. But yeah, the workflow is a pain, and if you're not wanting to like write your own scripts and stuff, it's probably a bit much. Because I don't want to attach materials and stuff manually either. Like I can't be bothered. Because I will say this: all my materials, it's one material. Like, so the environment has one material and the characters have another. So I just have massive atlases. I have like a 2K texture for like the environment, and then like the characters can have like 2 to 4K type textures, and so that makes it easy because it's just like I just say what material to attach when it's imported. So that's the other thing as well. I don't export materials from.
Okay, you create them in Godot, right? Or
well, yeah, because I mean, like, because they're so simple, like, because I'm not having to deal with normals and roughness and metallic and all that kind of stuff. It's just diffuse, so like it makes it really, really simple, or even unlit. Like, so it just makes it really simple because it's literally just attach the texture to a material and then assign the material to the map to the model. The only difficulty I've found, or not difficulty, but annoyance, is in GIMP when I update like the texture. I have to export it twice to like once to my Blender folder and then to the Godot one so that they're in sync. I need to make a script so I just one-click export my textures, so I'd have to do it twice. But it's a minor thing.
Yeah, it's good. Okay, let's move to the other question. So, how did you reach the vision that you have for the games that you're making and for the future of your company?
How did I reach the vision? No, I think I just stumbled across all of it really. Like it just started out with wanting to make certain games and like trying to make the things which I love, or like games which I feel like could either just do with like being shown a bit more. I mean, Office Point Rescue, literally like the number one influence for that is Virtua Cop. I loved that game as a child, like playing games sort of thing, and I had a demo of it on PC. But I just love the style of it. I love also like that Sega arcade 3D style. So I mean, like, I think that's where these games come from. But I mean, like, generally for games, it's often like I've played something and I almost like remix it. Like I used to be very much a musician, and like I used to do a lot of remixes, rearrangements of music. And I'm kind of doing that with games. Like I like to take all elements of different games and just mash them and see what happens. and like try and mix really like disparate things. But I haven't kind of fully realized that yet, but I'm getting there.
Okay. What do you find the easiest thing to do in Godot, with Godot, and what are the main challenges?
Find easiest to do. UI stuff is really, I love that. And also just and the actual like programming itself in script. I find that the translation from what I want to do in my head to code really easy in Godot because the language doesn't get in my way. I don't have the cognitive load that I would have of even C sharp, and I love C sharp. Like I love that language. I love programming in it so much. Like it's so much fun. It's like the perfect balance between like something like C++ and then a higher level language like Python. I love it, but there's still extra cognitive load which GDScript just gets rid of. Like once you've got your indentations, I don't have to think about colons. I don't have to think about object types. Even though I do use static typing because it's very important, I find for like organizing the code. I mean, there's a lot of things which I find easier to do with Godot, but the easiest thing I would say literally is being able to just get my ideas out, and also the scene composition type thing. Just making something up in a tree, just putting it together, seeing what happens, and then once like I'm sure that it's fine, just saving the branch as its own scene, and then I can just instance it. Like it's so good. Like the node scene stuff is just fantastic, and once you learn just how it works and the pitfalls, like with anything, it's just great to use, and I would highly recommend it to anyone. Like just get stuck in. You'll see how good it is if you just use it. Like the scenes are so easy to get to grip. Once you get to grips with them, they're so easy to just mash together. Just together, it's great.
Yeah, no, it's a different way of thinking from the other engines, but yeah, it's better in some cases. So,
yeah, it does. It feels very robust. It feels like it shouldn't be as robust as it is, just to be able to sort of like mash those things together. But if you do try and keep things as like individual as is reasonable, not as possible, as reasonable as to be, then like you have a very easy time just like putting stuff. I mean, like so many times I just grab stuff from other games like that I've made, and just grab the scene and the script file and just dump it into my new project, and I'm away. Like maybe with a bit of tweaking, but other than that, it's fine. Great.
okay. When do you start collecting feedback on your games from the community or testers?
Mostly at release, but I mean, like as far as testers go, I only have a couple of friends which I can get to play them, and they play them. Like they'll play. It'll depend. So one of my friends, like I talk to about game design a lot, and so I will sometimes get him to play really early stuff just to see if what I think is true. So it's like I've got like basically a prototype, and I'm like, this is like the core of my game. It's got all the core elements to it, and I think this is great. Or I might even think like, I think this is bad and it needs this, and I'll get them to play it, and I'll just see what they think. Most of the time, he just tries to break the game because he loves nothing more than like trying to just go out of bounds or like crash the game, which is great for testing, but not at that point. So I'll have that, and then like before release, I really need bugs. I really need people to find bugs because like I can't find all of them myself, because sometimes you end up like play testing your game in a really prescribed fashion, and you just get used to it and you switch off and you miss stuff. But yeah, so a lot of the feedback is upon release, and this is why I found it hard with my first like paid game, is that I didn't get like the massive amount of feedback that I got from my previous games, where people would instantly find bugs and issues or crashes and stuff, and then I could go in and fix them. So I mean, like, yeah, like for broad feedback, it will not be until release. I'll just see what happens, because I'm aiming for short development times. But with like friends, then I'll just see like, is this actually any good? What do you think to this idea? I mean, sometimes I'll even get them to look at the design doc and be like, what do you think of this design doc? To see if they get on board with it, So yeah, I think that's as best as I can answer that question.
Yeah, it's great. Someone asked, what off-the-shelf plugins do you use? But we did answer this question. It's
I'm sorry,
no, no off-the-shelf plugins, only what you made in Python. But yeah, there are some great plugins out there. How has honing a genre game type feel worked for you as a developer? And yeah, you did a lot of first-person shooters, so that helped you in any way?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's good. The thing which you do find out is that it's really weird, but like, there's so many generic things, even in like specific genres, that just like broadly appeal. So it's like, yeah, I've been like making like first-person shooters and sort of getting used to like the feel and the movement and how they should work with like pacing and AI and difficulty and all this kind of stuff. But then a lot of those things can just be applied to so many different genres, and it's amazing how many things I've been able to. It's almost like honing even on one genre is fantastic for like game dev in general. Like even if you completely move to a completely different like genre, the certain things of appeal and like so like teaching your game to the player and the experience of them using the game, like the difficulty curves and how much you should explain things, all this kind of stuff. It just seems universal. So yeah, it has been really good honing it on that one, and it has allowed a lot of focus to really develop on core game design type things. Is the way I can say it's like really hone those skills. And so yeah, yeah, it's been a good way of doing game dev. Even if I want to do other games, it works well.
Yeah, it's much easier to build on top of what you have than starting from scratch every single time.
Yeah, definitely.
There's other question like, do you have any advice for people starting out? But we already have one advice for people starting out. This one was with Godot, but I think it still stands.
I would like to add though, like that
Okay.
with starting out with specifically with Godot, I'd say that if you're somebody who is not too savvy with like programming, or should we say general like principles of like the basic fundamentals of programming, I think it really is so much. It's so valuable just to learn some parameters, you know, like just some really simple design patterns for software, and just learning about basic like types and arrays and a little bit of just memory and how things work. All these things which seem like dull and boring, just like really learn it. And it doesn't matter, like even if you just take like 2 weeks out to just go and try Python or C or C++, just anything, and just get a feel for like program. Because also I feel that you'd appreciate better what the engine is doing, and then you won't come up to like these simple questions of, you know, just like, well, how do I spawn another enemy, or how do I get another enemy to, I've made this enemy, how do I get another one? And it's like, well, you haven't learned like maybe to that you're instancing objects, and that you should probably learn about how those are dealt with and how you instantiate and how you make them, how you refer to them, how you reference stuff, like how do you reference a variable, as in not as in the programmatical sense, but how do I put my health in this variable, and it's like, but you don't understand the fundamentals of variables, right? So it's just, I think even if you want to learn Godot and you haven't done any programming before, just at least spend like just a week just having a little rudimentary look at some other language and just getting like the basics of programming. And I think it would like help you go a lot further and give you a lot more success. This is very personal and it depends how everybody works. But it's just like, I think that it's a fundamental thing that will just make a lot of things easier for you, and you won't have to search for tutorials for things which you could maybe work out yourself if you just had a bit of base foundational knowledge.
Yeah, great advice. Great advice. Yeah, would be nice to put them together, but yeah, if someone is watching, yeah, there is a previous advice as well, so you combine them and you get like the full picture. So if we move forward, someone has the question, is it something that you do full-time? But we already answered yes, it's something that Liam does full-time, so we don't need to answer again. Would you consider open sourcing any of your games?
Yeah, I would, and I did previously ask about the interest on it, but it's kind of like it's just it's one of those things which like it doesn't seem like it's a big thing, but it can be, because you get people who get very demanding about the source code when you put it out there, and then you also open yourself up to a lot of why didn't you do this, or why didn't you do that?
Oh, yeah.
Well, why didn't you make it yourself then, if this is how you think it should be done? Right? Just like make your own code if you've got a problem with it. It's like in an ideal world, I would love to just be like, here's the code. Disclaimer: there's a lot of rubbish in there, right? But a lot of things just have to be done. But there will still be valuable things which you could learn from it. So I mean, like maybe it's something which I'll do in the future with like as I've got more games, I'll release the older source code. As it's good for learning. Like I think if people want to learn and get certain bits, it would really help. But it's extracting like the art. It's because I don't have a very clear separation between my code and my art, especially with using an engine like Godot. It makes it difficult without open sourcing all of the other stuff or giving some kind of like permissible license to everyone to use the code. Like so I'd have to spend the time to extract all of that out and then be like replace these art files to be able to use it and what have you. The other thing is just saying here's the code, get on with it. I can't guarantee it works. Basically, I'm open to it. I have considered it. I will consider it, but at the same time, I'm very aware that there's a lot of things which are not how you should do things, and that annoys me a lot because it's just how I am. Like I don't like giving it out and saying like, here's a demonstration, here's a full game, this is how I made it, and it's almost like you're saying this is how it should be done, and then it's like, no, you really shouldn't be doing, because there's many things which I do in my programming that you should not do, and I only do it because I know you shouldn't do it. It's like that whole thing of you learn the rules and then you learn how you can break the rules, right? And I know that I can break them because one, I'm the only developer. Two, I know the pitfalls of it, and I know when something screws up, I know that that's what that thing is. And if I release a game with that, and people are like, "Whoa, what have you done?" It's like, wasn't it like VVVVV? It released that, and he just had like a massive switch statement, which was like it had like 1,000 or more cases, and everyone like was good, but it worked. He got it done, and he would have had to spend more time doing it. And it's just like that. It's that kind of thing. It's like he knew it was bad. He doesn't need anyone to tell him it's bad, but it's what was needed. So it's juggling that kind of like, I wish I could just throw it out there and just be like, there you go, done. But that's not the reality of doing that.
Yeah, it's interesting. What are your thoughts on making many different games with vastly different types of gameplay aesthetics? Probably this is exactly opposite of what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, like that's the thing which I want to do, right? Like make different things. So I think that's that's great. I mean, the aesthetics thing though is much harder, just because I don't know, like the time and the budget for art just seems that much greater than programming. I don't know whether that's my bias as somebody who started with programming, but it's just kind of like there's a reason why like big companies have massive budgets and like hundreds of artists sometimes, and like most of the budget goes there is because it's what people see, it's what sells the product, but it's also what takes a lot of time, and any changes in that are far more like crippling to like releasing a game than like with code change. And so it's a case of like with making types of games, I think that's fantastic, making loads of types, but with aesthetic, you kind of have to stick to at least something similar. Because it seems silly, but it's like a lot of the textures I do, like the largest texture I'll do is for characters and they're 256 pixels squared. I won't do that for environment because the amount of time that it takes for me to make one single texture will go from about half an hour to like several hours. If it's even like, say, from 64 pixels up to like 128, because of the process of which I go through to like do like the shadows, the highlights, and cleaning it up, and then patching more images together. When it's so much lower res, it makes it much quicker to iterate upon. So it's a case of like for games and programming, I'd say as many types as possible, but you're probably gonna have to stick to a similar aesthetic because then you can just put something, because you can't be making brand new models, brand new textures. And even if you're doing pixel art, I mean like having to animate every single animation, like draw every animation, or if you're going for that sort of style, it's just so much more work. And if you like go up to like higher res, 16-bit to like 16 by 16 pixels up to 32, up to 64, the workflows and the palettes, everything, it becomes like overwhelming. So I'd say you can separate those two out. It's like great for game, but for art, you're gonna have a hard time, I think.
Yeah, it's if you get used to something, it's much easier to reproduce that thing instead of just like switching over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, like especially if you're like solo and you're doing your art, you have to keep improving what you're doing. You can't improve it if you just keep switching out and like doing it because it changes massively. Even if you're doing like a 3D workflow, it changes so much compared to like, say you want to target like PS2 style, like like a higher poly or like even PS3 maybe. That is completely different because you have to take into account like the animation, the animations, the texture sizes, effects that you might use compared to like on like what I'm doing with like old PC or PSX games where like, it's mostly unlit and, just a diffuse texture with baked light, lighting baked in. So there's many things to consider, but maybe it's because I just find that part of it more difficult and more consuming.
Okay. So what are your main video game influences?
This is like one of those things where like someone asks you what's your favorite game.
Yeah.
Because
Kind.
let's see, like I used to play on like the NES. I used to love like my Super Mario Bros. 3, Duck Hunt, Probotector, also known as Contra elsewhere. I absolutely love that game. Then Sonic and all that on the Mega Drive. I'd say that the systems or consoles and stuff which have influenced games most for me are probably the Mega Drive, like 90s PC gaming, so stuff from there, PS2, and then PS3 probably, and then PC gaming. So those are sort of like core things. But I mean, like, I suppose a lot of things which I try to recreate are like with like Dark Souls. I love stuff from that. With the first-person shooters, a lot of Doom gets in there. I've said Doom, Virtual Cop, Half-Life, and Counter-Strike. In fact, Half-Life is a really massive influence, especially when it comes to game design, because in my opinion, and I'm sure it probably a lot of those, it does so many things right, and it does things well. From teaching the player to like showing a story in an interactive and a non-laborious way, to having like environments that are engaging and enticing, all these different aspects. It has so many elements to it. I'd say that, yeah, like Half-Life is a massive one. Dark Souls and Demon Souls are probably like the biggest ones, which I can say in a more general games, which I like. So yeah, but I mean, like, I just play loads and loads of different games. Like, I get obsessed with certain things here and there. It's like Resident Evil, like, because a lot of the aspects I like about Resident Evil are point and click games. So like Day of the Tentacle, Sam and Max, Indiana Jones and the Lost Fate of Atlantis and stuff.
Monkey Island.
Monkey Island, The Curse of Monkey Island. Like, I love, because I found that Resident Evil was a really weird one where it was like a point and click adventure, but it had like combat in it. And I always loved the point and click puzzle exploration factor of like the excitement of getting to a new area, more than like like the horror aspect. I mean, the atmosphere I love, but it's like that kind of thing, like that really engaged me, because it's like once you get further, it's like, what's the next bit? What's that? So point and click adventures, Dark Souls, Half-Life. We probably got there gradually as to what my big influences are, but those are really big influences on me, like really.
Yeah, those are nice, and of course this is probably the most important, because the games made us become game developers. It's not, we didn't choose this without actually having a background of like solid gaming that changed our lives.
I find it most hard, like, is choosing like what I wanted to make. Cause that's why like I made, because I mean, like the first 3 games I made, so I made like a top-down twin stick shooter, then I made first person like dungeon crawler type game, and then I made an FPS. And so that was literally me just like, what do I want to make? Like, so it was like a lot of it was experimentation of like, I have all these games which I love playing, and then it will change with what I'm playing as well. Because I do a lot of research, like with like playing games as well. So there'll be time when I play a game just to play a game, and there'll be times when I play a game for research. And so like I'll play all sorts of different things when I'm playing a game, and I'll take things from really disparate like genres to apply to something else, just to see, well, what if I mix that, what if you mix Resident Evil with like Kingsfield, or all those different aspects.
Yeah, nice. I think we're done with all the questions and all the stuff, so we can wrap this up. I'll ask the chat like if they have one last question, but don't make it a joke question. We had like once a joke question. It was funny. But as a wrap up to this, because I'm going to close this the survey right now. So as a wrap up to this, Liam is gonna continue making his RPG game, and you can follow him on Twitter mostly. You also have a web page. I checked it out, and also Just do also checked it. So yeah, right now in the chat is also the itch.io page. So that one is pinned, but I think from the itch.io page you can get to the others. I don't know for sure.
Yeah, because if you go on itch, you just go to like the creator stuff. So
yeah,
show all the games sort of thing.
Okay, yeah. No, it's actually the latest one that you have. So it's the out the office. Yeah, I like the title, like office something and then out of office.
It's because it's like, well, it's like, because essentially, like, if I in reality, the game is like, Office Point Rescue was like Shareware episode 1. It's like Doom episode 1, right? And then like Out the Office was meant to be like basically second episode, which you pay for, like third, fourth, right? So, but then it was like, they're not. It's not obvious that they're related. So like, I was like, I have to keep the Office Point Rescue names. I'll put it together.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. Since there's no question from the chat, I want to thank you for accepting the invitation to come to GoGodotJam and have an interview live with me. And thanks for telling the community your secrets and from your experience and from your knowledge. I think it was super solid advice. And yeah, if someone wants to get in touch with Liam, you can find him on Twitter.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me. It's been a real pleasure to come on, and it's just really nice to talk to someone about game development and all this stuff, because it gets very lonely as a as a solo developer. Can't thank you enough for actually having me on it.
Okay, yeah, we should get together, and I think the GoGodotJam, by the way, t-shirts down in the description. I think we can bring people together with this event, and also creators, developers, content creators, or whatever types of people that are interested in game development and in Godot. We can join together here on our Discord server or live on YouTube or whatever. It doesn't matter, but you need to support us as a community. Yeah, that's the most important. So I'm gonna wrap up the video. And I'll come back to our call in just a second. Okay.
Okay, no problem.
So yeah, okay. I'm gonna switch now the camera. Okay, so this is it for this episode. We have other great interviews that are upcoming soon. So if you are wondering what's next, you can go to gogodotjam.com/events. And also you can follow Liam on Twitter and also on itch.io page, his latest games. You can find the link on each page is pinned in this chat. And yeah, thank you for attending this event, and thank you for supporting GoGodotJam too. Have a great evening and see you again soon. Bye.